Good evening and welcome to your Wednesday edition of This is Ibrox. Tonight I'll be your host, Kyran Wallace, and we'll be running through all the talking points in the wonderful world of Glasgow Rangers, or should I say depressing at the moment. We'll be looking ahead to Nice tomorrow night in the Europa League. We'll be discussing Philippe Clement's style of play, or much to the Malays, non-style of play. And we will also be discussing at long last the appointment of a CEO. Tonight I couldn't do this by myself. I'm joined by two great co-hosts, or guests, should I say. Firstly, Iain. I was actually going to say, Iain, you're like the James Tavernier of this pod. You're ever present, lack form. But I think the second half's a bit mean on you, mate. 'Cause I do enjoy listening to you. But how are you?
I don't know about now, but I was all right till that wee comment there. But no, it's true. I've been rolled out quite a lot recently. I'm just hoping that once we finally turn it around and become a successful team again, that I'm still rolled out and not put the back again. So, no, glad to be here. Starting to get that feeling of wanting to see Rangers again, just about. So, let's go.
How about the poster boy of This Is Ibrox? Is that a wee bit better? You'll take that. You deserve it. You deserve it. And Shug, second appearance. Yeah. Debut was a shocker, so hopefully there's something to build on there. I'm only kidding, mate. How are you?
Hi, good, mate. I was shuddering to think what player you would compare me to. I thought maybe I was getting an Egamani or something there.
Very raw with plenty of potential, but we've not quite seen it yet.
I'll take that.
Anyway, thank you to everyone that's tuning in already. We do appreciate we're up against the Champions League and we've got I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here coming up. So, yeah, stay tuned in. We promise for a good show. We're going to be solid. But make sure you're subscribing, and for everybody listening, make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a like, a comment, and hopefully a nice rating if you can. So, we'll start off on Monday. The club announced that we have appointed at long last, and you probably could have put your mortgage on this, that this current board would be able to appoint a CEO just a couple of weeks before the AGM coming up. Patrick Stewart, formerly of Manchester United, was appointed. The club released it. Patrick joins Rangers, having most recently been interim CEO at Manchester United. Indeed, he spent 18 years at one of the club's biggest clubs in the world, gaining vast experience and knowledge to make him an excellent fit for his role at Rangers. Raised in Aberdeen, Patrick graduated from the University of Glasgow and worked initially as a lawyer in Scotland before joining Team Marketing, the agency responsible for UEFA club competitions. He then moved to Manchester United in 2006 as General Counsel and Company Secretary, and had responsibility for all legal and regularity matters, with his role evolving to include commercial and operational matters. In 2009, Patrick joined the board of Manchester United with further responsibilities, including negotiating player contracts and co-leading on the creation of the professional women's team. In 2022, he became an executive director of United's New York Stock Exchange listed parent, and his role grew further to include managing the club's relationships with the FA, the Premier League and UEFA. In 2023, Patrick assumed the role of Chief Executive Officer and oversaw the completion of a material investment transaction, successfully integrating the new shareholders and directors in the club and delivering operational stability during the period of transition. I'll not go too further into it, guys, but everything reads there, and I'll come to you first in this, Shug. Everything there, to me, seems to tick a lot of boxes with regards to Patrick Stewart. It's absolutely ripping out me trying not to crack a joke here, so I'll leave that to you on the Star Trek front. But how do you see this appointment at long last? It's something we've been screaming out for. I think I said on previous podcasts that it had to tick boxes, that it had worked at a higher level, especially the Premier League. It had that background of known Scottish football, and he could bring almost an experience to the club that would take us forward, and it wasn't just a promising appointment. I know we were linked with Jim Gillespie from St Mirren, and that didn't really appease to many folk. How do you see this appointment? Should you think it's a positive one for us?
Well, I think the first positive you've got to take is that it has been an appointment. We've been crying it out for a while. We've been crying out for the announcement. So it's a step in the right direction in that side of things. Now I don't know a lot about the guy. I've seen the negative side where people are saying, "Oh, look how bad the Man United run," but I don't think you can, without doing a kind of deeper dive into everything that he's done, and on that side, I don't think you can really proportion that blame. I think that's a bit of a lazy comparison. In terms of one positive I'll say is he spent so long at Man United. One thing we're looking for is stability. We don't want a guy who's going to come in, do a couple of years and then leave for another club or move on, who's been jumped about, job to job. We want somebody that's going to build something and then, keep it going. So that screamed out to me as a positive, that his longevity at Man United, and that gives me a bit of hope that he's in it for the kind of long haul on that side. Also, his kind of Scottish background, he'll know a decent amount about how things work out here. The other positive I'll take is, fine well, the minute his name got linked, so many people had been trying to find dirt and trying to find negative stories about it. I haven't really seen much, so that's got to be a positive. But everything else, I think it's a case of wait and see how he does. I think give him the benefit of doubt, give him a chance, and see how he kind of does it.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with anything that you said there. And Iain, where do you sit on the appointment? Are you quite happy, given his CV and his background and anything that's been said about him? I think there was a sort of, I don't know how to put this, it was an executive from another Premier League club who remained anonymous today, who sung his praises and said that he doesn't want to have his name in flashing lights. He doesn't want to be at the centrepiece of everything that happens. He just works away quietly in the background. Is this the type of guy you think could be a good fit for Rangers?
I mean, in terms of our position just now, in terms of what we can offer a wage for that kind of role, I don't think we get any better than this, to be honest. A guy that's been at a high level, knows what a big club's about, as Shug said, knows what Scottish football's about. Like, obviously, as Scottish, grew up here, that kind of thing bodes well in the early months and years, you have to think. He's not going to come in sort of blind to what he's walking into. He'll know how big Rangers is and all these kind of things. So that's a major positive. The CV is very successful. He's got the big club knowledge. I don't see many negatives with it, to be honest. Obviously, the kind of caveat there is the fact that Man U have been a bit messy, as Shug alluded to there, in the last few years, so we can't really ignore that. But he's a guy that I think Jim Ratcliffe was happy to keep around for that first year or so. So again, another positive. So yeah, I mean, the main thing is we're bringing someone in. It's so simple, but bringing someone in, and I touched on this in the pod the other night there, it's better than a jobs for the boys kind of role, which is what I thought the St Mirren guy coming in was a bit like. That was just somebody who would just come in much the same, whereas this has a bit of an opportunity to be fresh, new ideas, new perspectives, hopefully a bit ruthless, because I think a lot of people at that level need this kind of thing. So fully willing to give him the time to see what he can do. I know we'll come on to it at some point, but I feel the appointment date is quite interesting, quite telling. I think we're all thinking the same thing.
I was going to ask you that. I ran out of breath reading the statement, but he actually starts his role on the 16th of December. And the word that we get from the club is that they wanted to get the two big games before that out of the way, Spurs at home and then the League Cup final. Like, where are you on that? To me, that sounds, again, it sounds like the loser mentality that we need to get out of the club, and hopefully that starts on the 16th of December.
I get that fully. My first thought of seeing that date, and I'm not going to lie about it, is the fact that I think if we lose that final on his first day, there's going to be a lot of people wanting Clement out even more than the volume is now, which is high. And it's a very easy win to just sack him and get a bit of fan positivity. It's so backwards, sacking a guy who I think we all kind of were quite bought into 6-7 months ago, sacking a guy that I think at this point we all want, maybe not all, but a lot of us want rid of, whereas that's a task he can do on day one, gets us in sort of good books kind of thing. Again, that's maybe been really cynical about the whole situation. We obviously could win that game, but that's just how my first impressions were of that day anyway. It's
almost a bit of a tap-in for him at the moment. Exactly. At the moment, we could very much win that game. The odds are stacked against us, put it that way. But I'll come to you with the next question, Shug, regarding the whole appointment, right? And put yourself in Patrick Stewart's shoes, not the Star Trek one, the CEO one. First day in the job, 16th of December. Our club is a mess at the moment. It's been a mess for a long time, and there is a lot of cleaning up to do. Where do you start? I know the easy option would be sack Clement, because that's what everybody's saying, but where do you start here with our club?
I mean, first of all, it's hard to predict what the state of play with Clement's going to be by that point. There's a lot of big games coming up. Part of me, I was the same when I read it, quite sceptical of the appointment at the timing, of the start date. But then I'm thinking, does it really make sense to throw him in an AGM and, say, look, you take over, you take the heat on this one? is it probably a nice time to start? I don't know. But in terms of his first jobs, the Clement thing remains to be seen where it's going to be positioned, whether something that action might happen and be taken out of his hands and be done beforehand, because I think that's a board decision as well as the CEO. It's not just the CEO that's going to come in and make that. So it might be something that's done before he comes in and his job is then clean slate, pick a new manager, or it might be a case of dealing with that situation early. I think regardless, I think his most important job is the communication. I think to be out and quite clear with the fans, what his vision for the club is, where the direction is this going, and then act on it. I know that's pretty vague, but it starts with just talking to the fans and getting them on side and getting them bought in. He has to speak well and has to come across as if he's in control and he's here to lead us. I think that's what the club badly needs, and then we'll get into really exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree with you in the communication front. I remember when Bisgrove first came in and he started these quarterly fan forums, and they actually come across quite well. And then we had John Bennett, who came in and wouldn't talk to the fans whatsoever. And then I think John Gilligan made it a point of a monthly press conference where he communicated with the fans backwards and forwards, and it was welcomed. It really was. But yeah, in terms of the role itself, like, can you see him implementing a new structure where there's things like a director of football in, or do we see that as being Niels Copland's role? You spoke there about sacking Clement being a board decision as well, Shug. Do you think that would be unfair that the board made a decision on Clement before the CEO came in, thinking that he may like them? Because I'm going to play devil's advocate here a wee bit and say that if there's anything we can say about Man U the past 15 years is that they're stuck by managers who haven't been doing well. Now, I know that might scare folk a wee bit, and I'm only surmising here, but do you think that would be unfair? And can you see us sticking with Clement for the time being for that reason, that we might see him right out till either just before Christmas or after the new year?
Possibly. It's a very difficult situation, because if results get worse on the lead up to then, it becomes more urgent. Now, you cannot turn around to the fans and say, this guy needs to come in to make his assessment, so it'll be another month or so before he gets his feet under the table and looks at it. You've got to think he's involved in discussions with the board just now. He actually, I think, said in Clement's press conference that he's had a chat with Clement already. So it's not as if he's sitting doing nothing. He's officially starting the role then, but, I'd imagine he's pretty involved with the board discussions. Yeah, I think you would have to give him some sort of say in that, whether he started officially or not. But yeah, it would be probably unfair to take it completely out of his hands. But at the same time, I think if the pressure's building and building and building, we cannot wait until he's 3-4 weeks in the job and he gets to assess it, because that's just, for me, that could be kicking the can down the road, unless we see an upturn in results in the next couple of weeks.
Right. So I'm going to put you both on the spot here, and I put it in our one of the group chats the other day. If Clement wins that cup final, does he stay in the job? Ian, I'll come to you first.
I think he does. I think the only reason he's not sacked just now is because that final. So then, ergo, if he wins the final, he'll be given longer, which I get. Like, if you're a bit mental to keep him through these kind of results we've been having, beat your rivals for a cup final, and then sack him. Like, I think it would need to then go properly downhill after that. Like, again, we could lose the cup final, win the cup final, and then lose the next 2-3 games, and suddenly the knives are back out. So I don't think a cup final win just makes everything great again. But it does get a trophy. It does get the never beaten Celtic thing off his back, which I think are big two things against him at the moment. And then obviously you kind of give him January to see. That's the kind of risk obviously comes with it. Do you give him January to give him some funds to move the squad about and change things over if he isn't the long-term plan? But I would be very shocked to see him win that final and then leave within the next few weeks anyway. So I think that would give him at least a lot of breathing space. Not something I agree with, to be quite honest. I don't think one win, regardless who it's against, fixes what we see like week to week, because we could win that game and then go back to seeing this boring, poor football that we're seeing just now. So it wouldn't be a case of win the final and that's us brilliant again, but it would give him that breathing space that he maybe thinks he needs to get a few players back for injury, get a few different players in January and sort of restart. Yet another rebuild, it sort of sounds like when I'm saying that there, but I think that game's massive for Clement. I know the Spurs one as well, people have been kind of saying about how big that is, but Spurs could beat us 5-0 and I wouldn't really bat an eyelid. Like, Spurs are flying now. They beat Man City 4-0. So what chance do we have? But we are going up against it twice in 4 days there. So it's a very big week, that one for Clement for sure.
Yeah, it caused Pep to claw his face. I wonder what Clement would. So, do you think all credit's gone with him and it doesn't matter what he does, that it's the script's already written?
I think we've all seen this movie a good few times before, and we kind of know where it's going. It's very, 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 very tough to turn it around when it gets to this stage. Now, I agree. If he wins that cup, he doesn't get sacked. You know, that lifts the pressure, and ultimately gives the club a little bit of breathing space so that Patrick gets his chance to come in, and then you can say, look, get his foot in the door, get a structure in place, and then make those sort of decisions. It probably just gives them a little bit more breathing space. Whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing, I don't know, but it doesn't solve our problems, that's for sure. But yeah, I think if we win the cup final, it definitely gives a bit of a lift and takes the pressure off. But ultimately, do I see it long term make a difference? Probably not. And I've got to be honest, we're all talking if we win the cup. I'm not too optimistic, as I'm sure you aren't either.
See, on that, like, it's interesting. Obviously, Patrick Stewart's coming in from Man United. They had the exact same scenario at the end of last season, winning that FA Cup. So you wonder if that aspect will have a thought on Patrick Stewart at the time, because he's obviously seen a manager win a game that no one thought he would win, give him an extra 4 or 5 months in the job, and then still get sacked anyway. Obviously, didn't plan out that way. I think we could see a very similar thing here. So he might try and nip that in the bud early. He might have some good reasons to keep him on that sense. So it's a very interesting one.
Weirdly, I would like us to win it in that sort of situation happen. It's a bit of a win-win, isn't it? And you can guarantee we're going to get linked with, I've already heard this linked with Ruud van Nistelrooy interim to the end of the season, and we're probably going to we've been already linked with David Moyes, and then it'll be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it'll be Ten Hag. You know they're coming. We're going to get linked with everybody that's been at Man U, and every man and their dog, but you know how these things go. One thing I did hear about the Patrick Stewart thing, I know we're moving a wee bit away from the Clement stuff, was that he will be given free rein without any sort of governance from the current board or anything. That's got to fill you with confidence, Ian, with regards to, we've seen the decisions this current board have made over the past 6 to 8 months, and we've been a laughing stock. It's not been good whatsoever. Surely that's a big positive with regards to Patrick Stewart coming in and putting his own stamp on things and hopefully bringing the standards back. So I think that's something that's slipped big time, is standards. And if anything you can say about Man United is, although they've won a lot less trophies than their city rivals, their standards haven't dropped. They've always remained the biggest club in Manchester, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially off the pitch, when you think of like FFP and sponsorships and income, like Man United trump anyone in Britain by a mile. So that's a massive factor here. But no, you're quite right. I don't think he comes to us without that power. Like I say, he's got a good profile. He probably could have went elsewhere for maybe more money or sort of an easier job, an easier life. But he's clearly thought, well, I can try and fix this. And that's the thing. See, if he does come in, makes the changes that we're all kind of looking for, gets a positive atmosphere going, and ends up making Rangers successful, he'll be a hero. Like, there's no everyone within that board, within the club, when we start winning trophies and winning the big games, you're a hero and you're set for life kind of thing. So that is clearly the draw that's brought him here. The power aspect, I think, is very important because it gives someone some accountability, because that's something that's bothered me for years with us. Like, we've touched on it already. People come for a year, 18 months, 2 years max, and they're away. So then you're suddenly left with, well, whose fault was that? Who caused this problem? Why has that happened? If we can get people into these senior roles for long term, and whether it's successful or not, it then gives someone, not to blame, but you can say, okay, that was the problem and you done that. What are you going to do to fix it, kind of thing? Or just leads from there. So we need some kind of long term things on and off the pitch at the moment.
Stability being the main word there. I know that I said in pre-season we must stick by Clement. He's the most stable thing at the club just now, and I think that's pretty much flipped. But the comments are rolling in, Shug. I'm going to come to you with this one here. It's saying regarding Patrick Stewart's appointment, he's going from one shambolic club to another. On paper, it looks the right appointment, but how many times have we said that before? Thank you for the comment. Keep them coming in. Shug, is there a bit of scar tissue with the fans, or does Patrick Stewart, does he deserve to have a clean slate? Put it that way.
listen, he deserves to have a clean slate and a chance to do it. Anybody coming into a job that have not made any mistakes, you know, they're just or not even in the door yet, deserve some sort of a clean slate, right? But definitely there is scar tissue. You can't go through, you know, what we went through as a club and not have some sort of scar tissue. I think the worry is that too many times in the past that we have just appointments have looked right on paper and we've got right behind it and not been vigilant. So I think it's a good thing that, you know, the majority of support are saying, look, give this guy a chance, but we're not quite just sitting and celebrating it, or not thinking, yeah, because you've got a good CV, that means you're a great appointment. We're quite cautious, but also giving the guy a chance.
Yeah, I think as well that with regards to his appointment and where he is at the moment, I know that you touched on in your previous point that he would be working away in the background just now, having spoke to Clement. I think that was Iain that said that. What I hope that they're doing at the moment is planning ahead to that January transfer window, because the CEO is a big part of that. And for us and for me, what I feel that should be the biggest thing for him is that the priority is domestic success, just for the simple fact that the foundation of our club is built around domestic success. The only person that's benefited from us doing well in Europe, aside from the financial factors for us, is the team across the city, where we've done for the coefficient which nobody in Scotland has done at all in Europe. And they've benefited greatly from that. We need to start seeing the benefits of our own coefficient points, and that starts with winning domestically and bringing the trophies back to Ibrox that belong here. It might be a long season, but if he can get things right and put things in place that then start to build us towards that, then we can start to be successful again. Iain, I don't know if you managed to catch the press conference with Clement. We're moving on here.
Yep.
He was questioned upon his style of play. And again, 3 different times he went back to saying the second half at the weekend was good enough. I don't know. You just feel like he's sounding like a broken record over and over again, talking about second halves. Second halves at Rangers is not good enough. He was then questioned on his style of play, which has been questioned numerous times before, in terms of what is it that he has to change and why won't he change? And his answer was basically, we've been missing creative players like Oscar Cortez, Matondo, Tom Lawrence getting injured, even referenced Hadji, the Hadji, which he basically came out in the summer numerous times and said he wasn't in his plans at all. And he spoke about Nedum Bajrami playing out wide. Now, to me, this sounds like excuses. I think he's clutching at straws, and I think that formation needs a tweak. Do you think this could ultimately cost Clement and his job, the stubbornness to stick with that 4-2-3-1?
I've been saying it for a long time. Yeah, I just don't get it. He's so contradicting in these press conferences of late, because he touched on a good few points there in terms of injuries, which we have been, again, unlucky with. I mean, you can say luck, but there's something wrong at the root of that. But he mentions having some wingers out, which I get. He mentions having to play Bajrami at a position. Again, fact. But you then don't need to stick to that shape. Like, you could play Bajrami in the 10 and play a diamond. You could play 5 at the back. You could play 2 up front. There's so many options you can do when you have injuries, and we just don't ever do it. So how can he then sit and defend that? I mean, I thought the Hadji point was mental, because he's had Hadji for weeks now and not been using him. So that's not an injury. That's just a case of you've not been playing him when we've been crying out for a creative force. And I'm not trying to say that Hadji is the oracle that will fix all this. That's not happening, and we know that. But I'd rather see him in that 10 position than anyone else that he's been flinging in there, in terms of Diomande or even Lawrence when he was fit. Yes, he was contributing a bit, but we knew it wasn't going to be like a 90-minute player every week. So you need to make some rotations, and it kills me what we do in terms of substitutions. I mean, the weekend is a perfect example. Igamani comes on at left wing, looks raw at the best of times, looks lost out there for me. Like, he's not got the control to play as a winger for us. He's taken off Bajrami. Yes, he's played a lot of football, but guy's in his mid-20s. He's a fit player. He can play 90 minutes. Just keep your best players on the pitch. It's so simple. And then I think when I saw Ridvan coming on at the weekend, I thought, okay, is he maybe pushing Jeffrey up one? Is he changing something here? But no, just like for like, yet again. And then just to kind of go back to what he was saying today, it just clutching at straws is the best way to put it for me, to be honest, because yes, you get injuries. Yes, we have issues going on, but I still expect, and I think we all demand better than what we're seeing. Like, it's not been injuries in terms of like 6, 7, 8 players out. It's just been 2 or 3. So if you know you've got 2 or 3 long-term injuries, come up with a plan B. Like,
Yeah,
it's so
nothing
simple.
on the, and nothing on the scale of last year where we were
Not at all.
basically missing a full 11 at times. You mentioned the Ridvan substitution for Shefty there. It's absolutely baffling. Like, wouldn't the right thing to do would be to push Shefty up one, Ridvan in at left back, and then put Barami in at the 10 and try and go for there. Instead, we're shoehorning guys out wide and guys into positions that they don't play. It's just such a baffling manager at the moment. Shug, regarding sort of the weekend's performance and the formation, like, for me, we're so rigid. It just seems that players play in boxes. Nobody moves out where they come from. And if you're an opposing manager, you're turning up and you're saying, look, sit in, keep your position, keep your shape. 2 banks of 4 or 2 banks of 5, whatever need it be. They're not going to move around about us. They're so static. Where is it for you? You would change things if you were Philippe Clement just now, and it was like, right, need to change it. Where would you change things?
I think it's not just the personnel and the formation; it's just the way we play. You just wonder what's getting worked on during the week, because you watch that at the weekend, and it seemed to me as if very slow play at the back. And I'm not totally blaming the centre backs for that, because the movement in front of them was atrocious. And then the second half, I felt as if we got more joy because Danilo offered a bit of link-up play. Hadji offered something in terms of he could shoot from distance, but the main objective of our game was get the ball out to Czerny and hope that he does something. There wasn't any structure behind it, so for me, there's no part. I don't really see much a part in the play really. I think your first change is your number 9. I think to add some sort of link-up in there. And then, as you said, in game, you can make changes like go to up top, like, move Bajrami inside, changes like that. But I think overall, it's just more for me. I look at it and wonder what we're working on during the week.
Yeah, it's baffling at the best of times. I think I heard a stat at the weekend as well. You touched there on what we work on through the week. I had a stat the other day that we've had 75 corners and not scored one of them. Like, someone has to question Clement on that, because didn't he say that he loves set pieces and he's in charge of set pieces? Then, okay, you've owned it. Like, own it again. We're not scoring from them. It's not been good enough. We've had another good comment here come in from Michael White. He says, I don't think it's the players that find it hard to change. It's Clement. Nishug, I quite agree with this. I don't think we have the worst squad of players there, albeit it's maybe not up to the standards which we've seen before. Do you think it's Clement that's holding the players back, or do you think that we are void of the quality that we're looking for?
I think another manager certainly gets more at that squad. You can't tell me there's not the quality in there to finish second. You can't tell me that squad should be 11 points behind at this stage in the season. So, no, I think another manager gets more out of it. So I do think that to an extent, Clement is holding back. I think you can see that the players aren't really buying into it. So I definitely think that, it's the manager that's holding them back to an extent. I think there's big gaps in terms of quality in there. I think there's limitations to who he can pick. I think he's a bit hamstrung in terms of, I mentioned changing his number 9, but in fairness to him, he's had Danilo injured a lot. He's now not got him in the European squad. Igaman's not the answer, so he has been stuck with Dessers on a lot of times. But yeah, I'd agree with that point that another manager gets a lot more out of that team.
Yes, I know the cliche gets thrown about in football quite often of he's lost the dressing room. Like, I don't know what that emphasises a lot of the time, but in terms of, if I'm a player and I'm playing under Clement and things aren't going right, and as a player you're getting it absolutely stinking off the fans, you're then turning and thinking, right, wait a minute, I'm doing all I can here. I'm giving 100% for the club. It might not be turning off. You start to look to the manager and thinking, what are you changing here? What are you changing that's going to help us to make us a better team so that we can go and beat teams? I mean, he talks about the style of play, right? We have scored less goals than St Johnstone. What is it? How many have we scored this season? Is it 11? 11 outside that Ross County game? 11 goals in 11 games or something crazy like that? It's disgraceful. Like, I get that you can go and point fingers at Dessers and I don't think he's anywhere near good enough for Rangers. And at least, sorry, that's a bigger point, that in the summer he should have been replaced. We should have brought in a proper striker and he should be back up. But we're lacking.
No, sorry to interrupt, but I think that for a lot of players it must be, hard, because right now it's the scattergun approach without actually changing anything about the way we play. It's the case of now he's saying he's relying on Hadji. Well, a couple of months ago he was talking him down, and I know there was contractual issues and stuff like that. McCausland gets thrown in every so often and then subbed at half time. Now, I'm not saying again that he's the answer, but you can't just throw him in and expect miracles. Dowell seems to come out of nowhere one week and then he's frozen out completely the other week. So I feel as if it's just like, let's just change a few of these players in and about the area and just try that without actually, looking at the actual issues and trying to solve a problem there. Proper was, fourth choice centre back in the semi-final. He didn't put him on, and then he's back in the team right after that. So it just seems as if nobody really knows where they stand, what their best team is, how they're meant to play. I just think it's none of us can see what we're trying to achieve. None of us can see where the team's going, and those players will be the same. Yeah,
totally agree with you. It must be completely frustrating. And we've got a good comment here, Ian, from Kyle in the comments. He's talking about our B team, and Finlay Curtis has been scoring goals for fun in the B team. He says, we spoke about it the last time we were on the pod together, and I agree with that. Finlay Curtis is a young 18-year-old. He's absolutely flying. He's got bags of confidence. Is it time that we just cut our losses and just say that, look, this isn't working with Dessers? We're a wee bit short on confident strikers who are banging the goals in. Let's look to the young lad Finlay Curtis. What have we got to lose? Would you throw him in, Ian?
I wouldn't go as far as throwing him in. I don't want him to start a game. But, as far as I know, he's a winger. I've not seen him too much, to be honest, but he's a winger. We are crying out for wingers, especially to replace, Clement touched on it today, Czerny and Bajrami have played a lot of football, both for us and the countries. We're crying out for wingers to come on and just maybe last 10, 15 minutes. And I get the fact that we've not been miles ahead in any game to introduce some youngsters, but these guys aren't even on the bench. Like Bailey Rice is always that sub that's not a sub kind of thing. He's always doing the pre-match warm-up. He's maybe out at half-time, but he's never actually on the bench. So you're not going to ever see him. We could be 5-0 up in a game and he's not going to get the chance to come on, whether it's Curtis, Rice, Lovelace, Stevens. I think they're both sealed, and Lowry and King at this point, but I'd still rather be seeing them on the bench with a chance of coming on. Like, again, you look at how many chances certain guys have got. Proper is one. We've all kind of, I wouldn't say gave up on Proper, but we know he's not maybe the long-term answer here. He's not quite suited to Scottish football. Give Leon King a game. Like, it can't get any worse than what we're watching. Throw him in. Lowry, again, has had a million chances, and I think the boat's firmly sailed on that. But he can do something out of nothing, much the same as Hadji. Like, if you're looking for a goal with 10, 15 to go, he could be the ideal guy. And then your Stevens, Curtis, Lovelace, these guys, again, they're full of confidence in what they're doing in the B team, and it's a totally different level in ballgame, of course it is. But if the guys in the first team aren't doing it, if the fans are crying out for something to cling on to, again, we've seen Curtis scored again last night. There was a lot of retweets and comments on that and saying, like, get this boy up, give him a chance. If we don't, he's just going to soon become another one of those guys that gets to like 19, 20, doesn't get any better, and then just moves on. It defeats the whole purpose of having a B team, of having an academy. And just to even link that back to the whole CEO and Nils Coppin's new role, I think that's got to be a priority going forward, to just give some sort of pathway there, whether we're 4 or 5-0 up and bring these guys on, whether they're playing cup games. They have to be involved in some sense going forward for me.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could incentivise something like this where the manager receives some sort of bonus if academy players play a certain percentage of the time, because these things can benefit us. Just look at the likes of Patterson going to Everton for huge fees when he'd hardly kicked a ball professionally in his whole career. But anyway, and we'll look ahead tomorrow night, and the good news is Philippe Clement stated in his press conference today that we're going to go full tomorrow night. We've heard that one a million times before, but one thing I can say for sure is that European performances have been far better and far more entertaining than domestic performances. Now, looking again at the weekend there, the shining light in the second half would have been Hadji and Danilo, both not in the squad for tomorrow night. How are you looking at this one in a way that can be set up? I know that both fullbacks and the most experienced players for Nice are out for this game. Is this an opportunity for us to nail down at least a point and almost certainly qualify for the next round of the Europa League?
I think it really is. Yeah, I was trying to look into this earlier, and they're missing a lot of players. A couple of guys suspended. The fullbacks are both out. A couple of long-term injuries as well. More injuries than us, so there's no excuse there from Clement for once. But even if you look at Nice, they seem very focused on their domestic season. I think they're 5th in France just now. And yet in the Europa League, they've picked up 2 points out of 4 so far. So it sort of depends how they look at it. They might see this as the must-win to kickstart the Europa League season, or a kind of distraction from the league. Because I think if I'm saying right, they have Lyon at the weekend, which is quite a big game over there for them, obviously. Try to cement their place in the top 4 kind of thing. So you'd hope they put, not a reserve team out in any sense tomorrow, but they've maybe got an eye on the weekend themselves. And if we turn up with the right attitude, the way we can play in Europe, which sort of frustrates me in a way, because I wouldn't be shocked to see us win tomorrow night. But yet at the weekend, I'm quite nervous about going to St Johnstone. Like that shouldn't be my mindset at this point, but I've just got to go on what I see week in, week out. I can see us getting something tomorrow night. I think we've got a squad of players suited to Europe. We, as much as Clement denies it, we have a style that's suited to Europe. I could see us absolutely pulling off a win here. And if you get that win, it then takes all the pressure off the Spurs visit and going to Old Trafford. Suddenly those games are absolute free hits for us, which in the long term, again, we all said at the start of the season that the domestic success is the priority. We want to win the league. But given where we are just now, I think we'd be probably best suited going for a bit of a Europa run yet again if we get a good win or two with these last 4. So strangely looking forward to it, and certainly a lot more than the weekend, which is so backwards, but it's just the way life is for us just now.
Yeah, strangely I am too. And Shug, it's very reminiscent. I mean, touched on it there about the domestic compared to the European form. It's very reminiscent of what it was like under Gio, where Europe we were flying and we seemed to have it worked out. Tactically, it suited us a lot better, and domestically we just couldn't turn up and we were a snore fest. Like, how can you see it going tomorrow night?
I'm the same. I actually think we've got a decent chance of getting something, which is, as you said, it's bizarre that, you know, you struggle to beat St Johnstone, you can't beat Dundee United at home, but you're looking forward to Nice away. And I think everybody, as much as I'll not take European games for granted, I thoroughly enjoy watching us at that level and hopefully on a better level, you know, at some point getting back into Champions League. Domestics where we have to fix, and it's been for years that we've been overperforming in Europe and majorly underperforming domestic, and that's just not what we were brought up with, and that's not the way we want it to be honest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the game, but I think frustrating is probably the right word if we put on a good performance, because you're saying, like, why are we not building a team that can do that week in, week out?
Do you know what's crazy? And I make the comparison there with Gio and Clement, and hopefully nobody really quotes me if I'm saying like Clement's better than Gio. But see, when you think back, right, the first half of that Gio season when he took over from Gerrard, he let slip on, I think it was a 7-point lead at the top of the league. We were awful in the group stages in the Europa League, and in the second half of that season, the team just seemed to come to life. Like, dare I say it, might we see that again?
No, we won't. No, absolutely not. I mean, that you can forgive. When you look as if you're going to a final, you know, that's only happens a couple of times in your lifetime. Sometimes never in somebody's lifetime, you know. So you can kind of forgive when it's a season like that. You can kind of say, look, the league can happen next year, but I'm not excusing, you know, performance domestically for just sacrificing that for beating Malmo and, you know, getting a point against Olympiacos or even beating Nice. I don't see us, I think I said in the last one, I don't see us going any further than the next round. Maybe the one after that. But no, as much as this team's maybe getting better performances in Europe, they'll get found out eventually.
I agree with you. And we're without Casemiro, who's going to be a long-term injury and may return to Feyenoord. With that, he's been a bit of a shining light in Europe for us. As well, Tom Lawrence out for this one. Cortez isn't too far away, but won't feature. So I think there is a case where the squad might pick itself. Diamande hasn't performed in the 10, but again, he's been good in Europe. What changes would you make for this one? Does James Tavernier come in from the start for you?
I would like to see him stick with Sterling, and I want to see him get a run of games. I can potentially see Tav coming back in, I would rather, if you're going to rotate them, you brought Tav back in against St Johnstone, where we'll probably have more opportunities. We probably don't need to rely as much defending. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me saying that, but
more than us.
I would probably prefer Sterling to play tomorrow night and Tav to play the weekend. The other changes, unfortunately, I think he's quite stuck in what I think it'll be a similar team to what played at the weekend, because in fairness to him, he's not got a lot of options. Centre backs, he could probably shuffle a wee bit in terms of Balogun. Is Balogun in the European squad? Yes,
yeah.
Yes, Balogun could potentially come in there, but he's liked proper in Europe, so I think Tav is the only potential change out of that weekend's team.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Ian? I know Ridvan came on at the weekend. Jefty maybe partly to blame for the goal at the weekend. Can you see Ridvan coming in? Maybe Jefty moving forward one, or anything similar? Barami staying out in the left. Could we see Barami at the 10? Like there is some choices for movement here.
Yeah, that was the kind of radical thing I think is possible, but I'd be shocked to see it in the same breath. I think knowing Clement and how he reintroduces injured players, I can't see more than like half an hour for Ridvan again. I have to agree with Shug. I think the only one we could see is Tav coming in, which I think would be a bit bizarre, considering he didn't feature at all when we're needing a goal at the weekend. St Johnstone game is kind of picture perfect for what Tav can give us, albeit I know he hasn't this season at all, but I think it's as bad as that first half was at the weekend there. I think it'll be that exact starting 11 that goes again. And again, this is the one where I do, as Shug sort of alludes to it, you have to defend Clement a little bit, because what else can he do here other than something a bit very out there, which just isn't his style at all, is it? So, and the whole Diomande thing, again, he was terrible at the weekend, but his best performances for us have been in Europe. So I would probably say the same about Raskin as well, to be honest. Again, he wasn't great in the ball at all at the weekend, but facing a team away in Europe, tricky venue, has to be said. I think most of that team picks itself, really. And like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if they do put on a performance and a good showing and then throw it away at the weekend again. So looking forward to that one.
Going back to you saying about Diomande there, been shocking at the weekend, better performances in European League. For me, when we talk about another manager coming in, getting the best out of players, and you look at players that have maybe dipped off, Barami would maybe fit that bill as well, that started like a house on fire and he sort of dipped off in this system. Like, nobody can tell me that Diomande is a bad football player, and he wouldn't leave us and go and be a better football player at another team. Like, do you think like Clement is holding a lot of players back with this style of play, that when it comes to Europe, they can go and express themselves and show what type of players that they are?
I think I kind of cling on to that. It must be, because I'm the same as you. I think Diomande is a good footballer from the little moments you see in terms of controlling the ball, holding people off, pressing people. He's a very busy midfielder, but he's not the same player that we saw the first like 3 or 4 games. Like he scored his debut, I'm sure, and then the game after that, or at least 2 and 3 kind of thing. And I thought, oh, here we go, this guy can do everything, and he's absolutely fell off a cliff. But this is when I will sort of go the other way with it, because I know there's been a lot of comments about how he's not a number 10, he should be playing this role and a number 8 in the box to box and stuff. But what he was doing at the weekend wasn't because he's number 10. That was just a guy's so lack of confidence. It's unreal. And it's a bit strange for a midfielder to be that way. Like, you can picture Dessers being a bit out of sorts and out of confidence just now with the goals. He's kind of dried up and stuff like that. And you kind of assume an attacker can lose confidence easily. But a midfielder's not exactly judged in those kind of things. So you have to wonder, is it the style? Is it the structure? Is it something about his teammates? Like, what's going on with Diomande that's forcing him to be so poor? But I'm saying all this, I'm expecting him to be good tomorrow night, just given the fixture, given the setup. And I mean, my hope for this team is that we move from this 4-2-3-1 thing and just put a midfield 3 flat. Like, it doesn't sound like a massive change, but if you can just let Raskin sit and try to be that covering guy, to let Barron and Diomande be flying up, given their energy, and I wouldn't say they're a goal threat, to be honest, but they can shoot, they can maybe lead to a chance kind of thing. I think that would be a very welcome change to see, and it's that kind of thing that, again, another point we'll probably come on to at some point here, but is there hope for Clement? If he does start making those little tweaks and changes, 1, it could kick things off in a positive light, but 2, at least shows that he's trying something new, and that's all we can really ask. If he tries these things and introduces some other new players and it still doesn't work, then fair enough. But if we're seeing the same routine, the same actors and the same roles, I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Yeah, and Shug, Ian makes a great point there, and he talks about playing with the flat three. It's something I've said that I think we should do for we should have been doing for a long time. I remember back to Gerrard when we were sort of going through that cycle of seeing the same thing over and over again. I don't think, if you remember back to, was it the Old Firm game, Tavernier with the early free kick, and then the Scott Arfield goal with a wee dummy for Defoe. We went a 4-3-2-1 that game. That middle three was fluid, working side to side, where the wide man of the middle three would cover their wide man and would move over as if it was a four. Is this something you think would benefit this team if we went to a flat three? For example, say tomorrow night, would we benefit from putting Diamandi into a flat three or sticking with the 10 and bringing Bayrami inside as the 10?
I think for especially away in Europe and for big games, I like the kind of flat three in midfield over there. A number 10 can work, but it needs to be a certain type of player. It needs to have certain wingers, around them, and I just don't think we play that way. As for Diomande, I'm not going to give him a total pass. I agree with what you are saying. Like, he needs, it's possibly the structure the team he's playing in, but I've now seen him play a bit deeper, and I've not been that impressed, if I'm being honest. The early performances look good, but he's not done enough. He's he's looked a bit powder puff in some games in midfield and got, bullied. So I think, take away the manager. I think guys like Diomande need to show a lot more, need to show us what as they actually are. Because I've been confused. I thought maybe is he a number 10? Recently I've thought, no, probably not. He's probably number 8, but I've not seen enough of anything really from him. So I think there's a mix, but I just think we need to be clear on what we're doing, because at the weekend we're now putting Raskin and Barron in, who are essentially trying to do the same job, which is needed in Europe, not really shouldn't be needed in domestically. So I just think that just need to get that mix right, to be honest. And I think Gerrard was good at mixing it up, changing that team about, and knowing what midfielders needed for what game. I just think we're just, as I said earlier, we're just a collection of players in there.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a unit. Like, you're right, it does feel like a collection of players. Barron and Raskin are very, very similar. Again, their best performances have come in Europe. So I think, guys, are we in agreement that he's not going to change the formation tomorrow night, and we're likely going to see Butland in goals, right back Sterling, centre backs Proper and Suter, left back Jefte, off the left, I was going to call him Danny there, by the way, Bayrami, in the middle Raskin, Barron and Diamande, off the right Václav Černý, and up front Dessers. Do you think that's definitely how we're going to go?
It's depressing, right, isn't it? It's going to be like, it's not the exciting news that we want to bring to our podcast, but I'm tired a little bit.
Yeah, we've got a good comment in here. I'll come to you with this one, Ian. It comes from Rangers on Tour. Dio is Kamara 2.0, so he needs a Davis behind him controlling the tempo and players ahead of him who make smart moves like a Rebo and Kent. So we're looking back slightly here, but looking at the profiles of the players that we might need. Now, I'm going to butt into this and say Stephen Davis is a Rolls Royce. I doubt very much that you just find these type of players about, but do you think it's a case of if Diamande had a wee bit of protection deeper in the park, he's a bit more freer to do his number 8 role that looks like he's more suited role?
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, I think it's why we saw Diamande beside Barron quite a lot, and it worked okay. Never was brilliant, but it wasn't poor at any point from what I can remember. But I always thought Diamande was a bit sort of held back in that role because Barron can't do two things at once. Like, they needed an experienced head behind them. Again, Davis is the exact example of what you want, but you're quite right. We're not growing another Stephen Davis out of nowhere here. That was when I was excited about the whole was Joanne Jordan that was coming in, kind of fit the profile of what I wanted. The fact that we were so hell-bent on him, that fell through and there was no backup, just made absolutely no sense unless we were going to play someone like Bailey Rice or something, but that's clearly not materialised. So we do need an experienced figure in there who can literally just put his foot on the ball and calm things down. Simple as that. And I think that then gives you the option of a Barron or Raskin, because I think Shug's spot on. You can't have both of them, especially domestically, because they just do the same thing. So why are you playing two guys to try and break up play? We need someone to pick a few passes about, kind of thing. And then it's fair a comment, to be fair, because I think Kamara couldn't do that number 6 role at all. We didn't like that when he'd done that, but I do think Diomande is a bit more attacking threat to him, albeit his stats probably don't cover that at this point, but it would then just give him that license to get forward a little bit more. Again, this is stuff we've said for months now. We've all been crying out for a number 6. We were saying it in August during the transfer window. Never happened. And I think we've struggled since then. And this is what really bugs me, like, majorly about Clement, is that we all see this. We all see those two not working domestically. We all see Tav's done. We'll see Dessers isn't the answer. And yet we still see those guys playing, that style being played. I just think eventually you have to say, okay, you're not changing, so we have to change you, kind of thing. And again, I always seem to revert back to Clement out in these pods at the moment, but it's how I feel, and I think a lot of people are sharing that thought.
I think it comes back to as well that as a club we do need money, we do need paying customers, and if the paying customers aren't happy with what they see, they're going to stop putting their hand in their pockets, and that's when the board and the club start to take notice. And it's unfortunate that's the way that the club goes. But you make a great point there with regards to the Kamara thing with Davis, that he wasn't really a sitter, and a lot of the time we played two sitters when it was Kamara and Davis, and that goes to Shug's point where we don't need two sitters in Barron and Raskin domestically. Again, we see these things. Why doesn't the manager? It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. But again, he'll fall on that sword. I think the inevitable will happen eventually. But I think we've rambled on long enough tonight, gents. We've looked ahead tomorrow night. So I will hassle you for a prediction. Shug, tomorrow night, Nice, Rangers, how's it looking?
I'm going to go fairly optimistic. I'll go a 1-each draw.
Okay. Optimistic for a draw.
Aye.
Goes where we are at the moment. Iain, prediction, please.
By the sounds of this, I'm going delusional then. I think we'll win. I think when you look at Nice's position in terms of, I think they've kind of chucked the Europa League already. I think they've got a lot of injuries to key players, and they're having to play guys who don't feature a lot. I think this suits us in terms of the game, like the opposition, stuff like that, and just having that bit more freedom. I think we'll win. I don't think we'll like destroy them in any way. I think we're looking at like a 2-1, a 1-0 kind of thing, but I think we'll win. And again, wouldn't surprise me if we do.
Yeah, I'll go 3-0 Rangers, Dessers hat-trick.
You get the "we're back" tweet ready for tomorrow, won't you?
Just try to click on it. You see, when you said we're done Europa League and not getting any further in this next round, I'm going to chuck it right there and then.
I know. I was thinking, who called the bad cop? I'll go pessimistic. We'll get beat. I just think we'll get beat. No, I'm only kidding. I'm a bit optimistic. It's a funny feeling being so much more optimistic at the higher level than it is domestically that we can go out and perform. But it's like the most Rangers thing ever, isn't it? That we think we'll perform against a top French side, whereas you're not so sure against St Johnstone on Sunday. So I think we'll come away with at least a point, and I think that would be us on 8 points. And I think that puts us through. Yeah. Given the structure and the first time that we've been in this structure, as well as all the other teams, I think that's quite a good start to life in this structure of the Europa League. But anyway, I'll let you go. Shug, Iain, you've been fantastic guests tonight. Everyone that's made comments and tuned in, I do appreciate. There's probably a lot more entertaining on than we are. I'm getting my words mixed up now. So we really do appreciate it. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. And if you're listening a wee bit later on the podcast side of things, please remember to give us a follow and keep up with everything at This Is Ibrox. Thank you very much, and you'll hear from us after the game tomorrow night. Good night.